Hey, so today we're going to be making burnt tomatoes. Burnt tomatoes are not roasted tomatoes. Burnt tomatoes are completely raw on the inside, but you char one side of them so it's blackened completely. This is something that really takes advantage of the high heat and high heat transfer of a live fire. So the main thing to remember is don't roast the tomatoes, get your fire as hot as you possibly can, and just get a char on one side. Now I'll show you some of the other things that you should do when you're making a charred tomato or burnt tomato. The first key to getting a really great burnt tomato is to use a wide and sharp knife. A thinner knife is not going to give you a straight cut. You want to think of this, it wants to be like a guillotine so that you're going straight through and the blade is wider than the tomato that you're slicing. As always, you should make sure that your blade is nice and sharp so that it cuts cleanly through the tomato. So, cut through it lengthwise, like so. As you can see, this is a nice, clean cut. It's a flat surface, and that's what you want. You also don't want to salt the tomatoes before you put them onto the griddle, because that'll interfere with getting good contact with the griddle and will prevent you from getting a really good sear. Once you've sliced your tomatoes, you want to oil them lightly. So that's really about all we'll need, just a little bit. I'm using olive oil right now. Put it in here, swish it around. Next one, swish it around, and so on. We'll also be oiling the griddle. So, we don't want to fry these. We just want to char them, and we want to make sure that they don't stick. So now we have a small plate of sliced and oiled tomatoes. These are ready to go onto the griddle. One important thing to always do when you're cooking on a grill is use metal implements. Don't use utensils that are plastic or any sort of artificial material. Just go with metal because really fires get hot. So for these, it's also important that you're not just using a metal spatula, but using one with a sharp edge. I've actually used a file or a grinding wheel, I forget what I used on, but I sharpened this front edge here, and I'll actually even, use a honing stone on this or something. You want a sharp front edge. That is the most important thing that you can do to make sure that you get under the tomato and remove the charred part along with the uncooked part. Sometimes it can stick. Ideally, it shouldn't stick. You should be able to just push it around, but things don't always go ideally. So this will help you to ensure that your tomatoes remove easily from the griddle. Okay, so as you can see, this is a very well preheated griddle. That thing's probably cooking at about 800 to 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Once you've preheated it, scrub it with a brush, get it nice and clean, and then just wipe it with the oil. What you're doing by wiping it is not actually oiling the griddle, it's just wiping off any grit that may be on there. Once you've done that, you can start placing your tomatoes onto the griddle and letting them sear. In this case, with such a hot griddle, it takes about 90 seconds to about 2 minutes to get a good char onto these tomatoes. If you're running at a lower temp, it can take 5 minutes, even up to 7 minutes. But you really want to shoot for the hottest griddle you can possibly get. A bonus of this is that the grill underneath, which I'll then be searing some meat on afterwards, is getting incredibly clean with the griddle on top of it, trapping all of that heat. So that's a nice bonus of, beginning your cook with some burnt tomatoes. Okay, so Every now and then you're going to see here, this last one that I throw on ends up upside down. You just want to flick it with your finger. There we go, flips right over. There's no real trick to this. So 2 minutes later, these tomatoes are really well done. The big thing is they have not roasted. As you can see, they are completely raw still. That's why you want the high heat. You don't want to roast these tomatoes. I mean, you can. That's, you know, it's a different thing than what we're doing here today. Oh, you can see that one. That has a nice char on it. So I'll be showing you these tomatoes in a minute, and you'll see just they get blackened, but they remain raw. They're wonderful to use in salads. Even just put them on top of a steak with some salt. So there we go. These have no salt or spices on them. Salt them, then put some parsley on them or whatever matches up with the salad or how you're going to use them. Enjoy them. They're just a great thing to use and work as a great ingredient in everything.